Emily sat on the living room couch, scrolling through her phone as the rain pounded against the windows. The power flickered briefly, casting the room into darkness before the light sputtered back on. She glanced at the clock. 9 p.m. Her parents had left early that morning for a weekend wedding out of town, leaving her alone in the spacious house. The house, nestled in a quiet suburban neighborhood, was old, with creaky floors and drafty windows. Emily loved the history and character of the place, but tonight the creaks and groans seemed to take on a more sinister tone. She tried to ignore the growing unease as she settled in with a movie, hoping to pass the time until she could fall asleep. Outside, the storm raged on, thunder rumbling ominously in the distance. Emily tried to focus on the movie playing on the screen, the dim glow from the TV the only light in the room. Now and then a loud clap of thunder would shake the house, causing her to jump. She glanced at the clock again. It was just past midnight. The sound of the rain was almost hypnotic, but the occasional creak of the floorboards made her pause. She got up to grab a snack from the kitchen, the cool air of the hallway sending a shiver down her spine. As she reached the kitchen, she thought she heard something from upstairs, a faint thud, like a door closing. She shook her head, trying to shake off the feeling of dread. "It's just the wind," she whispered, though her voice wavered. Returning to the living room, Emily's cat, Whiskers, was staring intently at the ceiling, his fur standing on end. She called his name, but he didn't respond, his gaze fixed on a spot near the attic door. The door, which she was certain was closed earlier, now hung slightly ajar, a sliver of darkness visible within. Emily's heart raced, but she told herself it was just a draft. Still, the sight of the open door unsettled her, and she decided to ignore it, retreating to the safety of the couch. The following morning, Emily woke up feeling groggy. She had finally fallen asleep after hours of tossing and turning, the unease from the night before lingering in her mind. As she went downstairs, she noticed small things out of place. Picture frames tilted, a chair pulled out from the dining table. She frowned, certain she hadn't left things like this. Whiskers meowed loudly from the kitchen, his tail flicking nervously. Emily followed him and found the pantry door wide open, cans and boxes scattered across the floor. Her heart skipped a beat. It looked like someone had rummaged through it, but she knew she was alone. She quickly cleaned up, trying to shake off the growing dread. Throughout the day, strange occurrences continued. Emily heard faint whispering voices in empty rooms, and once the sound of a child's laughter echoed faintly from the hallway. She tried calling her best friend Sarah, hoping to distract herself and maybe get some company, but Sarah was visiting relatives. As evening approached, Emily found herself jumping at every little noise. The storm had calmed, but the eerie silence that followed was almost worse. Determined to make it through the night, she double-checked all the locks and turned on every light in the house, hoping the brightness would chase away the shadows. But as darkness fell, the uneasy feeling only intensified. As the sun dipped below the horizon and darkness engulfed the house, Emily's nerves were frayed. The strange occurrences had only increased throughout the day, and she could no longer dismiss them as her imagination. The lights flickered more frequently, and the cold drafts followed her from room to room. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the wind outside felt like a whisper of warning. She was making herself a cup of tea in the kitchen when she heard a distinct sound, footsteps, slow and deliberate, coming from the hallway. Her heart pounded as she grabbed a kitchen knife, creeping toward the source of the noise. The footsteps stopped suddenly, and she stared at the attic door, which was now wide open. Swallowing hard, Emily reached for the light switch, but the power went out completely, plunging the house into darkness. Panic set in as she fumbled for her phone, using its flashlight to navigate. She could hear the soft breathing sound, close yet all around her. The whispering voices returned, louder this time, almost urgent. She returned to the living room, hoping the familiar surroundings would provide comfort. But as she reached the room, she froze. On the wall, written in what looked like red crayon, were the words, "Help me." The writing was jagged as if done quickly, sending chills down her spine. Whiskers hissed and bolted under the couch, leaving Emily more alone than ever. The temperature in the room plummeted, and her breath came out in visible puffs. The air felt heavy and oppressive. Emily's phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. She opened it with trembling hands to read, "Get out." Her hands shook so much she nearly dropped the phone. She wanted to run, but something in the house was keeping her there, some unseen force that wouldn't let her leave. The fear was paralyzing, and she knew she had to figure out what was happening before it was too late. Desperate for answers, Emily turned to the one place she hadn't considered, the internet. With the power still out, she used her phone's dwindling battery to search for any history on her house. What she discovered made her blood run cold. The house was built on the grounds of an old orphanage that had burned down nearly a century ago. Dozens of children had perished in the fire, their spirits reportedly restless and vengeful. One name stood out, Thomas, a young boy who was said to have started the fire by accident. According to the local legend, his guilt and fear trapped his spirit, and he has been haunting the grounds ever since, seeking someone to help him find peace. Emily read accounts from previous owners who had experienced similar disturbances, footsteps, voices, and even sightings of a small boy in old-fashioned clothes. No one had stayed in the house for long, driven away by the relentless hauntings. Determined to help, Emily needed more than just an internet search. She contacted a local historian, Mr. Harris, who specialized in the town's paranormal past. Despite the late hour, he agreed to meet her that evening, intrigued by her story and the urgency in her voice. When Mr. Harris arrived, he brought a thick, dusty ledger filled with old records and photographs of the orphanage. As they pored over the documents, Emily's fear mingled with a growing sense of purpose. She had to help Thomas move on, for both their sakes. Mr. Harris suggested a séance to communicate with Thomas directly, hoping to finally find out what he needed to be at peace. Emily felt dread and resolve as they prepared for the séance. She could feel the weight of history pressing down on her, the cries of the lost children echoing in her mind. She knew she was in over her head, but also knew she couldn't back down now. Thomas's spirit was reaching out to her, and she had to respond. In the dimly lit living room, Emily and Mr. Harris conducted a séance, invoking the spirit of Thomas, a troubled boy from the orphanage's tragic past. As candles flickered and the air grew cold, Thomas appeared, his spectral form pleading for forgiveness. Driven by fear and curiosity, Emily researched the house's dark history, uncovering tales of Thomas and the orphanage fire that claimed many young lives. She sought guidance from Mr. Harris, an expert in paranormal phenomena, hoping to understand and appease the restless spirit. "Thomas," Emily whispered, her voice barely audible. The boy's figure wavered, and she heard his voice, faint and distant. "Help me, I didn't mean to." Mr. Harris spoke gently. "Thomas, we know what happened was an accident. We want to help you find peace. What do you need us to do?" During the séance, emotions peaked as Thomas confessed his guilt and need for forgiveness. The atmosphere became charged with sorrow and empathy, culminating in a profound connection between the living and the dead. Moved by compassion, Emily assured Thomas that his actions were forgiven, offering him the peace he had sought for decades. His ethereal presence gradually faded, leaving a sense of tranquility filling the once haunted house. With Thomas finally at rest, Emily felt a deep sense of closure and relief. She shared the experience with her parents, who returned home to find their daughter transformed by her encounter with the supernatural. Together, they reflected on the events that had unfolded, marveling at Emily's newfound strength and understanding of the unknown. Though the memories lingered, the house now held a new, peaceful energy, a testament to the healing power of empathy and forgiveness that had bridged the gap between the living and the lingering spirits of the past.